Today we are looking at our character description unit. This is the second lesson for Rose Meets Mr. Wintergarten. Today we are learning to identify words that describe what Mr. Wintergarten looks like at the beginning of the story, his actions at the beginning of the story, and a little bit about his character, his feelings, thoughts, what the other characters think about him at the beginning of the story. Identify words that describe what Mr. Wintergarten looks like at the beginning of the story. To help us, we're going to need to look at the picture for clues. We can write down some describing words from what we can see in the pictures. What words can we use to describe what Mr. Wintergarten looks like? If we look closely, we can see he has narrow eyes. He has a long, pointy nose. He has a frowning face. He has wiry hair, bluish grey skin, a hunched back. He's very thin, and he wears fancy clothes. Identify words that describe Mr. Wintergarten's actions, what he does at the beginning of the story. This sentence says, Mr. Wintergarten glared at Rose. What words tell us about what Mr. Wintergarten does? Glared. This sentence tells us how Mr. Wintergarten looked at Rose. The word glared is a verb, an action. Glare means to frown or scowl at someone. That means he wasn't very happy with Rose. And he gave her a glare, or a bit of a cranky look. Identify words that describe Mr. Wintergarten's character. This describes his feelings, thoughts, what other characters think about him, all at the beginning of the story. He's mean, said Emily. And horrible, said Arthur. No one ever goes in there, said Arthur, in case Mr. Wintergarten eats them. What words tell us about Mr. Wintergarten's character? What do the children think of him? Mean, horrible. The children describe Mr. Wintergarten as mean and horrible. No one ever goes in there, in case Mr. Wintergarten eats them. This sentence tells us that no one visits Mr. Wintergarten. It also tells us why the children think no one visits him. The children think people don't visit Mr. Wintergarten because he might eat them. Does he really eat children? In today's activity, we're going to be sorting some words that describe what Mr. Wintergarten looks like, his actions, and about his character at the beginning of the story. Let's take a look at the first label. Narrow eyes. The word narrow is an adjective describing word and describes the noun eyes. These words tell us what Mr. Wintergarten looks like. He has narrow eyes. We need to move this one to the red box. Now it's your turn. Complete the activity in Seesaw.